Power is often misunderstood. Many people associate it with status, money, or fame. But real power, the kind that influences people, shapes decisions, and quietly moves the world, is psychological. It isn't always loud. It doesn't need titles. It lives in how we understand ourselves, how we understand others, and how we manage behavior, relationships, and perceptions. There are certain psychological laws of power, basic truths about how influence works in human behavior. These laws aren't magical. They're not tricks. They are grounded in how the human brain operates. Let's walk through 7 of them. We'll take our time, explore each one carefully, and connect them to things we all see in daily life. The first psychological law of power is about control over attention. Human beings are wired to notice what stands out. We pay attention to things that are unfamiliar, slightly unusual, or emotionally stimulating. In any social setting, whether it's a classroom, a meeting, or a gathering, the person who controls the room's attention holds the power. This doesn't mean being loud or aggressive. Often, it's the one who speaks less but says more, or the person who listens actively and then speaks with precision. For example, think of someone in a group discussion who speaks calmly, uses pauses, and focuses directly on what matters. That person often steers the tone of the conversation. Social attention is limited. There's only so much people can focus on at once. The person who frames the topic of discussion can steer the group's collective energy. Take a political debate, for instance. The candidate who decides what the audience talks about, even more than what's said, is often seen as the leader. This is related to a cognitive bias known as the availability heuristic. People overestimate the importance of what's most mentally available. If you direct their attention towards something, you amplify its importance in their minds. That's real influence. The second law is predictability versus mystery. People are psychologically drawn to things that they can't fully figure out. Total transparency may build trust, but mystery builds fascination. And in power dynamics, fascination is often more valuable. When you're too predictable, people stop paying attention. But if you reveal just enough and hold something back, people lean in. They start thinking about you. This is not manipulation. It's about managing how much of yourself you reveal. In romantic relationships, this is often referred to as the early chase phase, where both people are learning about each other slowly. If one person is too emotionally available too quickly, the perceived value may drop, not because of rudeness or cruelty, but because of how human brains assign value to uncertainty. Psychologists have shown that people are often more attracted to someone when they don't quite know how that person feels about them. The uncertainty makes the mind engage, wonder, and revisit the memory again and again. It's called the uncertainty effect, and it creates emotional involvement. The third psychological law is emotional regulation. The person who can stay calm when others are upset has an immediate advantage. Most people react. Few respond with control. The one who doesn't get emotionally hijacked in a conflict, in a negotiation, or during a crisis tends to rise. Power grows where there's restraint. It's not weakness to hold back. It's strength. In evolutionary psychology, group survival depended on the ability of leaders to stay composed. Today, in the workplace or at home, the same rule applies. Imagine a heated team meeting where tension is high. Most people raise their voices, try to dominate, or shut down. But the one who breathes slowly, asks clarifying questions, and doesn't get pulled into the emotional chaos, that person instantly stands out. Not because they're emotionless, but because they're self-aware. This connects to something called emotional granularity, the ability to recognize and label emotions precisely. People who can say, "I'm feeling disappointed," rather than just angry, tend to handle situations with more nuance. They hold power by managing themselves. The fourth psychological law of power is perception management. Power is not only what you have, it's what others believe you have. Humans don't always evaluate things objectively. We often go by how things appear. So how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you present your ideas, all of that matters. Confidence, even when it's not backed by facts in the moment, can steer perception. We see this in courtroom settings. A lawyer who appears composed and authoritative is often seen as more convincing, even if their argument isn't the strongest. The halo effect, we mentioned earlier, shows how people generalize. If someone looks sharp and speaks clearly, they must be competent. This happens in hiring decisions too. Research shows that candidates who speak confidently are rated as more intelligent and capable, even when their answers are the same as others. This doesn't mean being fake. It means aligning your external presence with your internal intention. The fifth psychological law of power is scarcity and value. We are wired to desire what seems rare. This is a basic principle in behavioral psychology. When something appears available to everyone all the time, people value it less. But if something is selective, or if someone's time, energy, or approval isn't given freely, it becomes more desirable. This law applies directly to how we treat our time, our presence, and our attention. Scarcity creates perceived value. Think about exclusive events, luxury products, or even limited-time sales. It's not always the quality. It's the sense of limitation that drives demand. The same happens in relationships. If you are always available, people take you for granted, not out of cruelty, but because human minds adjust to abundance. But if you set clear boundaries and respect your own time, others tend to follow. Saying no when needed, not explaining everything, and choosing how much access people have to you. These are subtle but powerful tools of influence. The sixth law of power is rooted in understanding social mirrors. People reflect what you show them. If you treat someone as smart, they start acting more confidently. If you talk to someone like they're incompetent, they may shrink or become defensive. In psychology, this is connected to the Pygmalion effect. People tend to rise or fall to the expectations placed upon them. But this works both ways. You can also become more powerful by reflecting confidence, trust, and strength back at yourself. If you carry yourself as someone worthy of respect, others begin to mirror that perception. Your posture, your tone, even your silence, all of it shapes how others see themselves in your presence. Think about leaders who never have to raise their voice. Their presence alone changes the room. That's not magic. It's behavioral conditioning. Over time, they've trained others, often unconsciously, to associate them with authority. And finally, the seventh law is long-term consistency. This might not sound powerful at first, but hear it out. In psychology, consistency builds trust, and trust is the foundation of sustained power. Anyone can impress once. Anyone can give a great speech, win an argument, or get attention for a moment. But the real power lies in being stable over time. People gravitate toward those who are emotionally steady, behaviorally consistent, and morally predictable. In research about leadership, one of the top qualities people rate as valuable is predictability. Not in a boring way, but in the sense that they know what kind of reaction they'll get. If you're the kind of person who is kind one day, cruel the next, your influence weakens. But if people know what to expect from you, especially in hard times, your credibility rises. In friendships, partnerships, and professional roles, people remember how you made them feel over time, not just once. Consistency also links to something called identity capital. That means your reputation is a kind of currency. Over time, small actions, keeping your word, showing up, staying honest, accumulate. They build trust. And trust, once earned, gives you influence without effort. You don't have to convince people every time. They already know who you are. When we talk about power, we often think of control over others. But real psychological power starts with control over yourself. It grows when you understand how the mind works, yours and others. It grows when you observe more than you speak, when you listen between the lines, when you manage how people experience you. None of these laws require status, money, or privilege. They require awareness, self-control, social intelligence. These are tools anyone can develop. And in the long run, these tools make more difference than any title ever could. So the next time you think about power, remember, it's not about being feared or followed. It's about being centered. It's about being the kind of person who shapes what people pay attention to, what they feel in your presence, and how they act because of it. That is where the real power lives, quietly, but undeniably.